Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the leader of Kenya's opposition says that he'll be launching a court challenge of the results of last week's presidential polls. Raila Odinga is calling for a campaign of civil disobedience as he remains sure that victory was stolen from him by hacking. Also, South Africa's wrestling with the delicate decision about whether to grant Grace Mugabe, the First Lady of neighbouring Zimbabwe, diplomatic immunity. This after she becomes the suspect of an alleged assault on a model in Johannesburg. And in Inongo, DR Congo, cocoa farmers band together to form cooperatives in the hopes of upping their game and becoming more competitive in the international market for a crop that's seen prices tumble over the last couple of years. But first, the results from last week's presidential elections in Kenya are still being rejected by the opposition, who now say that they'll be challenging President Uhuru Kenyatta's win in court. Opposition leader Raila Odinga finally spoke on Wednesday, and he said that victory was stolen from him by hackers. Our Julia Steers tells us more.
After a week of insisting he would not seek justice through Kenya's legal system, Odinga surprised his supporters here in Nairobi's Kibera slum today when he announced that in the end he would take his election fraud claims to Kenya's Supreme Court. Now, people here have been waiting for days to hear him deliver his plan of action for the way forward in this fight, and after the announcement, they had mixed reactions.
We are very happy. He's making another step to go to the judiciary. So we'll have to see if is there any problem again like they have done in the IBC. Then we see the Kenyans not having justice. Then we'll see how we can manage this justice by protesting.
That's a nice decision because at least we'll be at peace as we wait for the outcome. And, we love that love as brothers and sisters. Yeah.
I would say that it is the time for the Supreme Court to redeem itself from the mischief that we saw 2013.
Now, Odinga himself says this is an opportunity for the court system of Kenya to redeem itself from its corrupt history, and he has until Friday to file the case. From there, it has to play out before President Kenyatta can be sworn in, and right now he's set to be sworn in at the end of the month in about 2 weeks. People here say they're not yet sure whether they'll demonstrate or wait for the court's case to be finished, but they say they're waiting to hear from their local leaders about a plan of action.
Julia stays there for us in Nairobi. Well, staying with Kenya, on Wednesday, the Interior Ministry backed off plans to shut down 2 rights organisations who had pointed out irregularities in the presidential polls. The government's come in for harsh criticism after raiding the offices of the African Centre for Open Governance and deregistering the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Officials now say that no action will be taken against the groups for 90 days, but opposition leader Raila Odinga has pointed to their treatment as influencing his decision to challenge the election outcome in court. South Africa's wrestling with the delicate decision about whether to grant the First Lady of Zimbabwe diplomatic immunity after she became the suspect of an alleged assault on a model in Johannesburg. Officials say that Grace Mugabe is still in South Africa, a day after she failed to hand herself over to police. Now, the alleged victims filed charges against Mugabe, alleging that she burst in on her in a hotel room and beat her violently with an extension cord. Our Jane Flanagan joins us with more.
She apparently is in South Africa. The South African government have confirmed that, and her lawyers are in negotiation with the South African Ministry of Police over her announcement that she's going to invoke her diplomatic immunity. This evening, the latest development is that Robert Mugabe has now landed in South Africa. He was due to arrive on Friday for a SADC conference, but brought forward his arrival in order to try and have some influence over his wife's rather sticky situation. Even though she's applying to invoke diplomatic immunity, it isn't clear whether she's actually qualified to do so because it is not clear whether she was travelling on a diplomatic passport or not. She was in South Africa receiving medical treatment, so it could be argued she was here on a private matter rather than an official matter. And so how this is going to work itself out, or whether Robert Mugabe can intervene on his wife's behalf, remains to be seen. But at this time, South Africans on the whole on social media seem to be speculating that Grace Mugabe possibly won't be held to account for her actions earlier in the week.
Jane Flanagan there for us. Now, Zambia's top opposition leader walked free from prison on Wednesday, months after having been arrested and accused of treason. Charges against Hakainde Hichilema have been dropped. On the morning, the trial against him had been due to start. The UPND leader was detained after his convoy failed to make way for President Edgar Lungu's motorcade. Now, his treatment since then threatened political turmoil in the country. After his release, he described his time in prison as brutal and insisted that his commitment to the opposition remained unchanged.
This thing has to come to an end. Yes. Because if it doesn't come to an end, I'm willing to go back to those cells. Yes. The criminal justice system has broken down in our country. Yes. Starting from law enforcement, the police, total breakdown, to the prisons. Those prison cells are death chambers. People are dying in those prisons every day.
Sierra Leone's begun to bury the victims of the fatal mudslide in Freetown that left over 400 dead. But even paying respects to those lost is proving difficult. Whilst recovery teams continue to excavate bodies, health workers complain of chaotic scenes and lack of equipment at morgues, where families have been told to gather to identify loved ones. Josh Vardy tells us more.
Thousands left without homes and around 600 still missing. Mudslides in Sierra Leone have killed hundreds in and around the capital Freetown, particularly at the mountain community of Regents, where a hillside collapsed under heavy rains. Officials say a large amount of the confirmed dead are children. After visiting the affected areas, President Baikaroma promised government help.
We have already established an emergency response center at Regent to coordinate our response and to provide relief to the survivors.
Relatives of the missing have been told to come to Connaught Hospital mortuary to identify bodies.
I'm here to find the dead corpse of my sisters. The morning that I was supposed to pay her a visit, I saw a cut of a hill mountain that fell upon them and everybody died. I went there, I saw where the house was, everything was demolished.
Meanwhile, the search for corpses and survivors continues in Regents, where hundreds of bodies have already been excavated.
As you can see, the terrain is very, very difficult. We are trying to see how best we can. As you are aware, after 1 week, it will be very difficult to get corpses that are intact. They may have started decomposing. So we are trying to speed up our effort to ensure that we recover as many as we can.
With the ongoing heavy rains, there's the risk of further landslides, but also the spread of disease.
Cocoa farmers around the world have suffered through a massive drop in the price of their crops over the last couple of years. In Onongo, DR Congo, smallholders and farmers are combining resources in a bid to improve their appeal to buyers and become more competitive in a difficult market. Our correspondent reports.
Uncle,
at the heart of the Congolese rainforest in Mai-Ndombe province, cocoa planters are forming cooperatives to strengthen their business and boost their profits.
I like the system. Now we sell our cocoa beans to a cooperative, but we're also making a profit when the cooperative sells the cocoa to international buyers. It's like a double wage.
After the harvest, the cooperative sells the dried beans to a cocoa broker, who then sends the merchandise to a chocolate maker in Europe. Thanks to Belgian NGO Trias, Congolese farmers were able to give structure to their cooperatives and get in touch with international clients.
The final goal for these farmers is to be autonomous. But first of all, we want them to be real professionals. These cooperatives must become experts in their field so that they don't get fooled.
According to Trias, around 120 tons of cocoa are set to be exported in 2017. The rise of cocoa farming is sluggish, but local authorities believe in its potential.
Cocoa is one of the products that could really help boost our province economically, possibly even the whole country. This is how we develop a country. Without agriculture, there can't be any development.
Through their cooperatives, Maindombe planters are setting a good example. Cocoa could be the key to better living conditions for those people living in the province, but also across the entire country.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for watching us. Do so again. Take care.